Yeah, he does everything.
All right, we'll go ahead and get started. How many people are aware that what we now call martial arts originated actually in Africa? Anyone? Very good. If you did not know that, you can just do a Google for Beni Hassan, B-E-N-I-H-A-S-N, and you'll see a temple relief from before Kemet was united, and it shows Africans in dozens and dozens of poses doing what we now call martial arts. Now you'll notice that I'm calling it something like so-called martial arts, because it's something of a misnomer for us to use Mars, Roman god of war, to describe something that actually predated Rome on the entire scene of world history. So one, we originated it, and capoeira is an expression of the same thing. So as opposed to calling it martial arts, I will call it a combat science. And this is something that we use in order to defeat, there was what was called the Triple Alliance War. Has anyone ever heard of the Triple Alliance War? One. All right. This is where the Africans in Brazil were told that if they were able to defeat Paraguay, which had the strongest navy in all of South America at that time, they said, if you are able to defeat them, we will give you your freedom. So what do you think these Africans did? They whooped them to the point where a lot of Brazil's strength came from that, and the Africans liberated them. Now, after that, we came to the urban centers, and they came to be associated with thugs who were killers and this, that, so they banned it. That's how bad this art was at that time. So they banned it, but eventually it was legalized. So in Brazil, sometimes we hear that it's a Brazilian martial art or a Brazilian dance or something like this. But in Brazil, you would be surprised that they still call it by the name Capoeira de Angola, which means capoeira of Angola, giving respect to where it came from. We're going to play a little rhythm that is also called Angola, and then we'll do a demonstration which in Brazil they still call Capoeira Angola. So you will be able to see that it comes from Angola. Now when I say this as well, I want you to also remember that because it's an African art, it belongs to all of us who are here in this room who are Africans. So this is our African art, not something that people are doing somewhere in Brazil that doesn't relate to us. So we will go ahead and get started with Angola. One thing you'll notice is that we didn't sing in Portuguese. Why not? Because we are about re-Africanization and de-whitenization. So as we come here to Ghana, it's a fully indigenized art. So we do it in a way that reflects our ideology and who we are as Africans. So we sing in Chi, we sing in Yoruba, we sing in Wolof, and we sing in Kambon. All right? So we are going to show you a little bit of what it looks like, and we're going to do the slow version because we don't want to destroy this whole place. So relax, relax. And you were told that there's a capoeira troupe where you see me and my co-instructor, and you're wondering, where's the rest of the troupe? And I hope you all have a mirror because you are looking at the rest of the troupe. We're going to have you get up and you are going to participate yourself. Who's ready for that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's enough.
That's the basic movement of capoeira. So I want you to swing this way. And I want you to swing this way. Swing! I heard y'all swinging during I saw y'all swinging during the blues. I heard y'all swinging during the jazz. Y'all better swing. Swing! And swing! And y'all better swing with it. And swing one more time. And swing one more again. Now, if you ever seen Muhammad Ali fight, he swings, he flows like a butterfly. And then also he sting like a bee. So I want us to swing, and then I want us to stand. And stand. And swing. And stand. And swing. And stand. And swing. And swing. And stand. Oh, y'all look good with it. You get scared, y'all. All right. So, capoeira, you can see it's something that you can get into, right? And it's more than just a collection of techniques, a collection of movements. It's a philosophy and a worldview and approach. So one of the main things is we want to attack without being attacked. So if my man here, if he kicks at me, it looks like I was getting out of the way, right? But what I'm doing to get out of the way is actually what I'm doing to attack him at the same time. So it's not a thing of you beat me and I'll beat that. I'm not supposed to get beat one time. This place is too pretty for that. So I want to be doing all the beating, right? So I move out of the way, and as I move, I come back. So again, if you see Muhammad Ali fight, in his younger years, he wouldn't get beaten a lot. He said, I'm the prettiest. I'm the greatest. Right? So that's part of his philosophy. Any African who is a successful fighter, I say this guy is doing capoeira because he understands the philosophy behind it. And this is a philosophy we find time and time again in our African combat sciences. So we'll close with that, and hopefully you'll come see me for a little bit more capoeira.
Thank you very much for that.
Yes, because they didn't mean anything to us as Europeans at the time, like the made very arbitrary boundaries. But they said that the only issue that they had amongst themselves is who will control Africa. So these are the boundaries that we still hold to this day. So there's a proverb that says, "How races where it was high." So even now, the book has been removed, we're still raising the same boundaries. It talks about the circles and the trained elements and the weird little trained elements that they would give them a heavy metal slap when they were young. And when they did that, the elephant would say, I can't go, eventually it would stop trying. So they found some huge big elephants. They all leave with tiny rope and a wooden stick. They will never go. So these are the reasons why I say these are the boundaries for us. Even when we are able to or would be able to go beyond our boundaries, see exactly what we're doing on
So we want to go back to street class, so today's level that I don't want to see more
This is a good question. In Ghana per se, I haven't seen them doing very much in planning street law. And I teach African studies at the University of Ghana. And usually I start off asking them, how many of them know that all writing, the first book in the history of all humanity, was written here in Africa? No, not a single hand goes up. I said, so you've never heard of the instructions of Potato Deck? They said they've never heard of it before. And I said, okay, fine. I just want to know where they are. So I asked them, have they ever heard of Imhotep? They said, not a single hand. I said, this is the world's first multi-genius. He built the very first pyramid as an architect, who was also a known medicine man, and also he was very known for mathematics. And they say, I've never heard of him. So then I asked them, okay, well, have you heard of Shakespeare? Every hand goes up. I say, okay, have you heard of Einstein? Every hand goes up. So I say, objectively speaking, which one is more important? The very first book ever written by a human being on the face of the planet that was written here in Africa, or some, syphilitic European somewhere in England. They say, oh, the first book. So I say, then how come the ones who set up your schooling system, you can find the documentation of what I'm talking about in the London Museum to this day. So how come these very same British, when they came here, they didn't tell you that writing started here in Africa? They said, oh, I say, it was intentional. I say, the very first multi-genius and Einstein, which one is more important? You get subsequent geniuses without getting the very first multi-genius in the history of all human beings. They say, oh, it must be Imhotep is more important. So I say, how come the British did not tell you it's intentional? So that's where we're able to make a distinction between too much schooling and too little education. So when you ask, have you done this too much? I don't think you've done it enough. I think African studies should be in primary one, because when they come to class, every single thing I mentioned, Hatshepsut, they've never heard of her. The Kentucky Queen, Amani Runa, they've never heard of her. Queen Nzinga, they've never heard of her. These are names that I grew up with from a very young age, because I grew up in an African household. I was born with the name Obadele. You would think that I'm linked somehow to the Yoruba people. No, I'm linked to people with African consciousness. You understand? So this is why I think it definitely is much more necessary, because we are suffering from poverty, a poverty of ignorance about who we are as Africans, but we know every single thing about Europeans. So this is a problem.
So we find the sense of we become talking. So for you, as a lecturer, what is the way forward? What do you think?
Very good. I'm actually a research fellow and also a lecturer for research. This is a very good question. I'll quote Manoko Oshini, a noted historian, where he says, what we do for ourselves, so we're focusing on action, what we do for ourselves depends on what we think of ourselves. What we think of ourselves depends on what we know of ourselves. And what we know of ourselves depends on what we have control. So given the scenario that I told you about at the Capoeira University here, if we want to make sure that we aren't doing very much for ourselves, to make sure that we are not taught anything about ourselves. So then you get the inaction by cutting it off at the very first point. So I think that this is something that is, a major problem. So the way forward, I think, is that we've tried ignorance. We know what's not knowing any of this information gets us to where we are in Ghana. We know what ignorance gets us. So let's at least try knowledge. It can't be any worse than how we are now. So I think that if we are told something about ourselves, for example, people complain about the government, that instruction of Asako that I mentioned is a document of a father instructing his son on how to be moral and ethical in government. How many Ghanaian politicians have ever looked at that, or Nigerian or anywhere, have ever even written, much less in the original language called Vegetation, the sacred language of our African ancestors? So if we want to get to a place where we can do something by ourselves, we have to get beyond getting the womb before the Europeans came to civilize us. And we went to this high level, and now we're down here. They told us we started here, and now they're bringing us up. So I think that once we know that we're at this high level, then we can say we have some standards to attain to. Right now we have very little standards. I speak P, I speak Yoruba, I speak Wolof as well. I studied Kiswahili, so I have conversational Kiswahili. I also studied Kambon, so I have conversational Kambon. And then I can count about 20 more other languages that I can identify something that at least read, at least, order from loved ones, things like that, including Amharic, Xhosa, so God, at least when you can I can read. So at Accra, it's small. So anywhere I go, because I know that I'm African, as opposed to where you're asking me what fragments, and I ask you, once you know you're African, then you start acting out what an African should do. That means that this language isn't your language, this language isn't your language, that all of these languages are our languages. If we thought that, you all would be learning Yoruba today, you all would be learning Wolof today, you would be learning Songhai and so forth and so on. So I think this is the way forward. Once we understand we're African, then the behavior is going to go along. I think it plays a big part. Otherwise, this is the Portuguese arrived in 1471. At that time, you said that you're Ghana, you say you're Ewe, you say you're Ghana. That's fine for that time. But they say, so it's only when the situation arises that we start to problem. So it's the context that tells us. So the context has changed, but we're still doing what we were doing in 1470. So I think this 1470 mentality needs to change to what Muhammad was telling us about. He never called himself a Ghanaian. He said, I'm an African born, I'm an African based in Ghana. So if we all can take this, well then what does an African do? We see completely different behavior. Right now we see behavior of your this and I'm that. 1470 African. But if we can update ourselves to intelligence, then we can start saying, once we're all Africans on the continent, that will give you those countries. In G is called Abibifahodie, and it's actually interesting. When I go around Ghana, no one knows what this is. Well, I'll say coming around. He saw it, he said, hey, Abibifahodie. He said, you're the only person I've ever met that knows it. I have this dollar dictionary from the 1800s, what is this, exactly this instrument. But how many Ghanaians even know that this is something that was found here and found throughout the continent, with it still its own native name? So when we say bam, it's like aben, like aben, it's something that you know is instrument. And something we use as a bow and arrow. So we call it Abibifahodie. So that's the indigenous name here. In Brazil, they call it Berimbau. And also in Angola, you can found the same names and found all throughout the continent. What's the name of it? This one is made of wood carved in Brazil, where they call it ill-used instruments. It was something that was used to set traps, so the components would be fired. So that's what this is. This is used with a wire, right? So inside of the tire, we get this cat blood, things like that. This one is a kind of like this one is yes. This is what I use. This is what it's used for the combat science. So, one thing you can do is like cheese. You would say Asako. What is that? That would say Asako. What is that? War. So Asako is war, and Asako, so by changing the prefix now, it goes back to the noun class system, the visual noun class system that becomes. So you can see that there's a relationship between this and fighting. This is something that's known by everybody. We can say martial arts, but the reason why I perform combat science is because Mars was a Roman god. So when we say martial arts, we're saying that this is an art associated with Rome and Sparta. Now the Europeans even told us that we should not be pagans and heathens. But if you look at martial arts, if you look at Thor's day, Thor's god. So all of these things that built into England. So we throw away ours and we say this. So these are some of the things that we do. I can only tell you to say some of the things. So can I close with the wall?